Hello and welcome to Africa Weekly. World leaders and experts assembled in Glasgow, Scotland for the COP26 conference on climate change. The agenda is simple: to find ways in a faster manner to save the earth. How major decisions and commitments made can advance climate change issues around the world is the main focus of this edition of Africa Weekly. My name is Justin Bemunyi, and I welcome you to the program. Now, while deliberations have gone on for many years on the impact of climate change on livelihoods, particularly in poor countries, it is another chance for world leaders to walk the talk on their commitments towards a safer environment for all. African leaders, including President Muhammadu Buhari of Nigeria, want a direction that takes the continent into consideration with investment in renewable energy.
I do not think anyone in Nigeria needs persuading of the need for urgent action on the environment.
Desertification in the north, floods in the center, pollution and erosion on the coast, and Lake Chad, now a shadow of itself from a vast expanse of biodiversity, as President Buhari says, are enough evidence that climate change in Nigeria is not about what might happen tomorrow. It is already happening today and with devastating consequences.
Nigeria is not looking to make the same mistakes that have been repeated for decades by others. We are looking for partners in innovation, technology and finance to make cleaner and more efficient use of all available resources to help make for a more stable transition in energy markets. Nigeria is committed to net zero by 2060.
Zero net, the president agrees, can lead to economic transformation across all sectors, and therefore a detailed energy transition plan and roadmap based on data and evidence has been developed by the federal government.
And the data and evidence shows that Nigeria can continue to use gas until 2040 without detracting from the goals of the Paris Agreement. Nigeria is actually more of a gas than an oil-producing country.
Okay, joining us now via Zoom from Glasgow is a frontline environmentalist. He's Dr. Nimo Bassey. Well, Doctor, thank you so much for joining us on NTA International.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, world leaders, including President Muhammadu Buhari, have made commitments at COP26, paving the way for state parties to commence negotiations. Now, from the new commitments and nationally determined contributions, do you see any hope for net zero carbon emissions by 2050?
Net zero itself is a false notion. Net zero actually is not a promise that would help tackle the climate crisis. I say this because net zero offers corporations and nations the opportunity to continue polluting, continue releasing greenhouse gases, carbon, methane, and the rest, and then by mathematical means illustrate that their pollution is being mitigated or captured somewhere else. So it offers opportunities for no action to be taken on global warming. That is the major challenge that is confronting this particular COP, because every nation, almost every nation, is talking about achieving net zero emission reduction. Nigeria has set 2060 as a target. The European Union has set 2050. Corporations have set different dates. It's just a question of trying to carry on with business as usual and then push the problems to the future.
Now, let's come home a little bit for Nigeria and indeed the African bloc. oil and gas is crucial to fund the transition to clean energy. How can this be achieved to create a balance between immediate survival and a sustainable future?
I believe if the nations in Africa wish to use revenue from fossil fuels for the transition to green energy, the first thing they should do is to stop investing in new fossil fuels exploration or extraction. We're seeing from records that we have that oil companies, for example, are planning to invest up to 250 billion US dollars but in the next 1 decade in looking for new oil on the new fossil fuels on the continent. They're planning to spend up to 1 trillion US dollars by the end of the century. And what this means is that if that amount of investment is utilized in developing renewable energy, this will be very, very possible to achieve. But if investment is still used in areas that rather than being used in research and design and production of renewable energy, then of course, no matter how much money you get from fossil fuels, from new oil finds, from gas finds, from coal mines, it's not going to make a difference.
Personally, you've been an advocate for climate justice in the race against climate change. Let's get your perspective on this matter.
Well, climate justice basically takes the position that those who are not creating the problem should not be forced to bear the responsibility of tackling the problem without any support. And so even the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which holds this conference of parties annually, is predicated on the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and differing capabilities. This is the justice issue. Those who have created the problem, which is the global north, industrialized nations, they've taken up the space in the atmosphere that carbon can be put, greenhouse gases can be put without leading to catastrophic global warming. They have done that already. And so there should be a discussion about payment of climate debt. It's a debt being owed the global north to the global south. And so rather than our countries debating about the Green Climate Fund, 100 billion per year from rich countries, we should be asking for the climate debt which is being owed. This should not be a grant, it's a debt being owed. It's a debate that should be had. We have to look at historical responsibility, current responsibility, and future responsibility.
Okay, Doctor, just before I let you go, youth and gender equity in climate change is another crucial element of discussion at COP26. Do you have any opinions on this?
Yes, and it's not for no reason that youths are the ones who are championing the cause for climate justice and for action on climate change. Just looking at the deadlines for action being set by various nations, 2050, 2060, 2100, everything is pushed to the future. And that future belongs to the youths, belongs to them. And so whatever action is taken now, whatever inaction goes on now, has direct impact on young people, and this must be considered very closely.
Well, Doctor, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time with us.
Thank you very much for the conversation.
All right. Well, we've been with Dr. Nemo Bassey. He is a frontline environmentalist, and we connected him via Zoom from Glasgow. Africa Weekly continues with these tidbits. Please do stay tuned. We also have with us in the studio a sustainability and innovation analyst and founder, Climate Smart Ventures. He's Mahmoud Mohammed Meishanu for more insights into the COP26 conference. Well, Mr. Meishanu, thank you so much for coming to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, can you give us your take on what you have seen so far at Glasgow conference on climate change?
What I've seen so far is commitment and pledges from global leaders. Every country except for Russia, who has a representative, have made their pledges, and which is very important and at this critical state because this is the real pandemic. This is a pandemic beyond the COVID-19 because climate change is a global crisis and we don't know what is going to unfold except we take the right actions and the right decisions. So it's all about trading policies, pledges on how to cut down to net zero.
Now, talking about commitments, as you rightly mentioned, President Muhammadu Buhari and other African leaders are seeking investments in renewable energy. Now, what areas are these investments needed the most?
Like you rightly said, the president stated that we need investments in renewable energy and cleaner energy, and that's the way forward because we're looking at anything that would transit us to green economy and that would cut down our emissions to net zero. So renewable energy is a clean source of providing energy, which we have a huge deficit, and it's the right step towards the right direction. And we need these investments in terms of building capacity and the technical aspect. And the one thing that I think we fail to mention is that we have all the resources. We have natural resources and we have natural gas. And just like Mr. President has rightly said, Nigeria is not an oil producing state. It's a gas producing state, and we have abundant of natural resources. There's something that the UN has carved out called the climate smart mining, which they have identified minerals for climate action. And Nigeria has a huge deficit of such minerals. All we need is technical competency so that we can harness these resources and begin to export them. We don't, we just need the initial investments, and after that, Nigeria is going to take all over the world in terms of providing renewable energy.
Now, so far so good. Let's have a look at the takeaways. How can Nigeria and Africa, leverage on the COP26 conference to advance projects on net zero carbon emissions?
Just like the president has rightly said, we need financial support and technical, sustainable technical support. Because as it is now, we would need that technical aspect of it. I like to also reiterate on the the finance aspect, because Nigeria needs to tap in the Green Climate Fund and all the green fundings out there in terms of subsidy, grants and projects. So right now is for us to build a house, and it's up to us who are in the environment space and all the stakeholders in Nigeria to do that and deliberately, channel our efforts towards accessing those fundings in terms of projects. We need to show the level of transparency. We need to show the level of innovation and commitment towards, putting in young people, particularly the youths, in this fora so that they can help in accessing the. So we need to start with bringing all stakeholders together in the sense that we need academia, we need experts, we need scientists, we need technocrats. Everybody should come on board so that we can make this happen.
So on a general note, what are your expectations after this conference?
I expect a lot of commitment and I expect a lot of action. I think we should be less words and more actions so that we can achieve the pledges that we have pledged, and every country has a quota and every country has a role to play. And just like they said, this COP is about mobilizing finance and working together. So we need a lot of integration, coordination, and we need a lot of curating path that the young people can join in so that they can contribute. We have a lot of innovation and innovative young people with great innovations. All we need is a platform for them to come out and showcase this, particularly in renewable energy and clean energy. We've seen a lot of young people. I think I saw an interview or a program about a young boy from Anambra who has done something in hydro, and subsequently there's a lot of young people fabricating renewable energy. You know, all we need to do is have an agency, like I said, that is going to help, you know, deal in business of climate change.
Well, Mr. Mahmoud Mohammed Meishanua, thank you so much for your contribution in this regard. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
All right. And Mozambique is exploring more opportunities in Coral South natural gas project and plan to drill 6 sub-area wells to feed into the new LNG plant being built in Cabo Delgado.
The Coral South Natural Gas Project planned to drill 6 subsea wells to feed into the new LNG plant being built in Cabo Delgado. The drilling started in 2019, had to stop in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic and resumed this year. The last of the 6 wells is expected to be ready this month.
Representa marco importante.
It's an important step not only for the concession holders but also for Mozambique, since natural gas is a strategic resource the country has that will help in transforming, expanding and diversifying the economy. This is where the LNG floating plant will be anchored. Securing steel cables are already in place, as well as the outlets that will allow for the gas to be shipped. The engineers and technicians are now working on the last details to ensure the structure is ready to receive the floating plant. The LNG floating plant is being built in South Korea. When fully operational, the Coral South LNG plant will have the capacity to produce 3.4 million tons of gas. We expect this to be fully operational from 2022. The Cabo Delgado Natural Gas Project is a multinational investment of over $7 billion American dollars, one of the biggest ever in the history of Mozambique. The country is expected to earn around $20 billion over the next 25 years from the exploration of natural gas.
Money laundering and terrorism financing are 2 issues affecting development in West Africa. Now, stakeholders have met in Abuja, Nigeria, to find a way around the problem.
Participants at the annual National Public Lecture at the instance of Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, GIABA, attributed the infrastructural deficit and lack of drugs in most government hospitals in the sub-region to corruption. Lack of good roads, medical tourism, and abject poverty, they said, were the direct consequences of money laundering and terrorism financing. The key players asserted that in many countries in the sub-region, these crimes have adversely impacted national security and development, including the erosion of hard-earned reputation for individuals, corporate organizations, and even countries. They were of the views that while investors take calculated risk, they equally avoid investing in countries classified as high risk for money laundering and terrorism financing.
These reports provide insight into how criminals carry out money laundering, terrorist financing in both our countries and the region. The reports also reveal the vulnerabilities, the weaknesses of the system that are being exploited by criminals.
Capital is very timid. Capital does not like going towards crisis. It goes towards certainty. Okay? To the extent that Nigerians who have money to invest, if they are scared of their own economy and its instability, they will not invest in Nigeria. They will take it elsewhere.
while affirming that predicated crimes cumulative effects that lead to money laundering, while the pauperization of the poor and the enrichment of the crooks, systemic corruption, erosion of the rule of law and the integrity of the financial system, and the political silencing of those who demand what is right in the society.
Agreed. The challenges of money laundering and terrorism financing are still with us, but the scale has greatly reduced.
Participants advocate collective collaboration of both state and non-state actors globally to stem the tide of money laundering and terrorism financing.
Now we take you to Morocco now, where that country is working with Australia to expand trade volumes between both nations.
Australian officials expressed their satisfaction with the growing volume of trade exchanges between Morocco and Austria in recent years, considering that economic transactions between the two countries will witness further growth in the next few years, and affirming their desire to turn Morocco into a platform for trade exchange with the African continent.
Satisfied about my stay here. The first trip was a private occasion, but now it's official.
Morocco is one of the most important markets that witness dynamics at the level of its transactions with Vienna compared to the rest of the countries in the region, while a kind of stability was recorded in the exchanges that take place between the European and West African countries.
And that's our package this week. Thanks for being part of it. My name is Justin Bemuni.